We're going to do something a little bit hectic in this video, and something that we rarely ever do unless one of the cars is getting shipped off for service or has to go somewhere, whatever. We're gonna drive every single car today because I thought it would be interesting to talk about the finances of trying to own 5 heavily depreciated, used, somewhat luxury, somewhat sports cars. So in this video, we're gonna talk about the combined finances of owning the Ghost, the Vantage, the M4, the Sport, and the L322, which for the first time in like 3 weeks, the L322 is out from under the cover. I'm actually excited to drive it. So let's go ahead and jump into the L322 and talk about how much it costs to insure all 5 of these depreciated tanks. One of the problems with 5 cars is that with each car coming with 2 keys, you get, well, 10 keys. So we keep this little key box in the cabinet. The L322 did this one. And here's to hoping that this one actually unlocks and starts after probably 3 weeks of not driving it. Oh my god, this car is so wonderful. I originally had some hesitation about making this video. Okay, so that's still a problem. One of the things that is random about having 5 cars is that each of them at some point in time all have their own errors. This one I have forgotten about, but it is apparently not monitoring the rear left tire pressure. So I'm not sure what that's about. That will have to go to the mechanic to get sorted out, because I'm useless when it comes to that. Moving forward though, let's talk about insurance. Now, it's one of those things that you try not to think about too frequently, but sometimes don't have any choice, especially when it just auto drafts from the account every month. So insurance is a little expensive for all 4 of the cars, or all 5 of the cars. It's $1,100 a month for the coverage we have, and that's with multiple policy discounts and pretty much everything that we could get a discount on, we tried to get. And it's $1,100 a month. The Ghost is the big one in that. It's $300 a month alone for just the Ghost, and it takes up the majority of that. Insurance is the one thing, though, that we don't really like to skip on. We specifically always want to be protected in the event that something does and inevitably happens. Insurance on the Ghost is the one that is interesting to me. When it's under $200 a month per car, it doesn't bother me too much, but once it reaches that over 200, really over 300, it starts to become a little alarming to me, because you're starting to talk about the price of a normal car payment for one car just for insurance. So that's probably the only one that I have a problem with. The Aston, the M4, the 2 Range Rovers, they're not that expensive in my mind, but the Ghost is hefty. Another random annoyance about so many cars, finding a place to park them. We actually almost rented a garage down the street, but it was just a little bit too expensive to justify spending another $1,100 a month on $1,400 a month. Yeah, it was $1,400 a month for like 3 bays, or 4 bays, which would have been enough, but it was actually overkill because it had lifts and it had like a paint studio, or like a paint bay, and complete overkill for just needing storage bays. Eventually you get it. Gotta wait for the dip mirror to come out. That's what the rednecks said in high school, they're dip mirrors. And there we go. All right, on to the next one. All right, Range Rover locked. Let's move on to the M4 so that we can talk about payments, which is, I think, the biggest expense. Anytime it's nice enough, you have to put the top down in this thing. So, speaking of payments, only 3 of the 5 cars are financed. Nick and I don't particularly like financing toys, so the Ghost and the Vantage, neither have loans on them. They were purchased in cash from the beginning. Financing toys just isn't something we personally like to do. I understand when it makes sense, and I understand how it makes sense, and you can preserve capital. Whatever. I don't like to do it. I feel that if I don't have the cash to cover a toy, I don't need to buy the toy. And I feel like that's kept us safe over the years. The M4, the Range Rover Sport, and the L322 all still have loans. I say still because the L322 has had a loan on it since 2016. Still has one. The payments on this M4 is $533 a month. I think that's a pretty good payment considering this car is wonderful. It's actually one of my favorite cars in the fleet right now. Short of the Ghost, I think this might actually be my favorite car. I might like it more than the Aston just because it's a little more usable. The payment on the Range Rover Sport, on the other hand, is $550 a month. It is by far our most expensive car payment, but it's the family car, so it's kind of justified in that way. $550 a month is a lot more than the 5 Series was, which was $250 a month, which that was our last family car. But overall, I think it's pretty solid. There's a McLaren. So the payment on the Sport, like I said, $550 a month. Not too bad considering it's the family car. We all kind of share that expense, so it's not one single person takes it fully on. We use that to haul the baby, haul the dogs around. We use it as a film car sometimes. We kind of just use it for everything. The Range Rover L322, on the other hand, is the cheapest payment at $376 a month. And that one actually is by far the lowest payment, by almost $200 a month. And the total for everything is $1,460 a month, which for all 5 of the cars isn't too bad. For 3 cars, I feel like that's a little steep. But that's just kind of my personal opinion. I realize like the average car payment in the US now is something like $500 a month, which blows my mind. Nevertheless, the payments, that's by far the biggest expense we have with it, but yeah. All right, on to the next one. Let's talk about maintenance. This is a big one, but it's gotten better over the years because we've learned that cars with warranties are a lot better than cars without warranties. All right, so for the topic of maintenance, we are going to take this one. This is the Ghost key. It's just a big BMW key. So what warnings are you gonna have today? Any? Nope, just 1. 2? No, 1. Okay, so now that we're in the Ghost, I'm feeling rather relaxed, which is good because after adding up all these numbers when I was writing the notes for this video, it actually started to stress me out quite a bit. So maintenance is an interesting one. On the Ghost, maintenance is $0 because we paid $6,000 up front for a second year of provenance. And essentially provenance covers absolutely everything except tires and fuel. We've talked about this in another video, and you can actually click that up in the eye above to check out a little bit more about provenance and what it's like actually daily driving this car. I didn't really want to average that out to the 2 years and then divide that by the 12 months to get the average monthly cost. It was paid for up front. It was paid for in the initial price of the car. So in my mind, it was part of the price of the car. It's not an actual maintenance cost. Tires, I don't expect we'll have to do them in the time we own the car. The only time you would need to do them is if the control arms went bad, which they're known to do. But because this car is under warranty and service plan, we shouldn't have to worry about replacing the control arms at any point once they've gone bad. And if we do notice they're bad, we can always just have them replace them before the tires get bad. The rest of the cars though, that's where things start to get a little expensive because while the others have a warranty, no other car company aside from maybe Porsche offers something quite as good as provenance, except a Toyota, which just doesn't have problems. Next up though is the Sport, the Range Rover Sport L494. On average, I would say that one costs us about $100 a month, so $1,200 a year. The Sport is under Land Rover's warranty, however, that only covers things that break. Obviously, maintenance is not included in that, so you do have to kind of factor in general maintenance, which every year would come out to about $1,200, which is insane considering that's about the price of the Aston as well. The M4 is also under warranty through CarMax. That's about $75 a month in general maintenance across the year. Nothing too crazy. In fact, the M4 is actually quite reasonable when it comes to service, especially when you compare it to the Range Rover. The Range Rover, over the 5 years I've owned it, or 6 years I've owned it, whatever it may be, has come out to an average of $160 a month, every month, in maintenance and repairs. It is by far the most expensive car I've ever owned as far as repairs go. $160 a month. You would think over time that average would actually go down, but it in fact doesn't. That average consistently remains about that $160 a month. In fact, if you look at old videos of the automotive channel, you'll notice that in fact $160 a month was about what I was paying for it back then, and that's held true. So one thing I will give it, it is by far the most consistent car we own. Just consistent in terms of it constantly needs attention. The Aston, on the other hand, is actually quite a bit cheaper. In the 2 years we've owned it, it's averaged about $125 a month for maintenance. That includes tires, brakes, everything, oil changes. Every single thing that car has needed in the past 2 years has averaged out to about $120 a month, which is not that bad at all. So, total, all in, maintenance on those cars is about $460 a month. Honestly, not too bad at all. It's another car payment. What? What?
That.
Yeah, you start to realize just how stupid we are, don't you? Okay, moving on to the next one now. We are going to move to the Aston so that we can talk about fuel, registration, and emissions testing.
Tire pressure's also low on this one.
Yeah. Fuel actually isn't too bad when you spread it across 5 cars. You end up not driving that much, honestly, especially working from home. Really, the only time we go out is if we absolutely need to go get something from the store that we can't just Instacart or DoorDash, or if we just want to go for a drive, which usually happens about twice a week. Fuel, because of that, only ends up being about $300 a month for all 5 cars total, so it's not that bad, especially when you consider that each fill-up is about $60 to $80 a piece, depending on the car. The Rolls-Royce and the 2 Range Rovers have bigger tanks, so it costs quite a bit more to fill them up. On the other hand, filling up the M4 and the Aston's not that expensive at all. They don't have that large of tanks, so usually about 50 to 60 bucks will do it. So yeah, honestly, fuel, not too bad. Registration and emissions is a big one. It's a big expense once a year for the cars, and I say big, it's not that expensive. It averages out for every single car to be about 35 bucks a month. Hey, I think we're on to the last car, which is good because I feel like I've just been hooning around for 45 minutes this week. We're trying to make our way through all these cars. This is a lot. Aston. It's this one. I realize now why we don't drive every single car every day. Because it's a lot. It's also expensive to take them all out in one day. But yet it's also expensive to let them sit and run away, so, you know. Last car of the day. So last night I wrote the script for this video, or the notes I should say, and I added up all of the amounts at the very end so that we could talk about it. And the number I came out to, if my math is correct, is $3,815 a month. Which is a lot. Like, I can't even, like, work my way around that. That's a lot. And I actually had reservations about making this video because I didn't want it to seem that we were showing off and flaunting. Because truly, I had never added up how much these cars cost every month. And if you include depreciation, it's at least $5,000 a month at least. And that's not quite something to be proud of as much as it is just something that I thought was interesting to share. Because on paper, to me every month, these cars don't actually cost that much money. There's no payment on the 2 most expensive ones, and the payments are very manageable the way we split them up for the other ones. So like in my mind, it wasn't too crazy. Up until I added up the total amount for everything, maintenance, fuel, everything. And that's when I realized that we're spending a lot more than I thought we were on cars. As a car guy, I would love to be like, this is my dream. I have dreamed of being able to have these cars for a long time, but when you add up that amount, it's also kind of depressing. Because you realize that for that amount, that's a nice house in the suburbs. Or a nice house on the beach. So, truthfully, I'll say one thing. It's not a detrimental amount, especially when you average it out across 5 cars. It's less than $1,000 a month per car. Which, saying that sounds stupid. That's actually not that bad. Okay, never mind. I feel better about it after my talk with Nick. We've suddenly just decided it's not that bad and we can buy 10 more. That's not what I said. $3,815 a month for all 5 cars. It is what it is, I guess. I mean, it's not a low figure, and it's honestly not as low as I thought it was. Because the thing is, a lot of these expenses come in big hits, like maintenance, for example. We just did $3,000 in work in the L322. So like that's a one-time expense, and it feels like a one-time expense. So that money is not leaving the account every single month. So adding these figures up in that way was probably not the best representation of it, but it was the only way I needed to do it in a format that made sense. And it just kind of is what it is, I guess. And there it is. For the first time in a very long time, weeks, we have taken every single car out in a day, and it feels really nice. And I start to remember why we have each car, because each car is completely different in its own way. Even the two Range Rovers are completely different cars in their own way. And it's made me miss my L322. I actually feel like I need to take it for a long night drive soon. Anyway, thank you all for watching this video. I hope you got some sort of insight into how much it costs to own all 5 of these cars. It's not an expense I had ever really added up or thought about, so it's a little strange to see it all on paper. But anyway, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to turn on notifications for more videos like this. I will see you all in the next video.